Hold on one second, Eric. Welcome to Heal the
Sure.
Hate. This is the Mama Jamma group, and we are looking at ways to bring love, compassion, and playfulness to all the ways that we see life with challenges, and finding ways for all of us to drop in our heart and heal the hate between blues versus reds, blacks versus whites, old versus young, men versus women, gay versus straight, and all the other ways we differentiate from each other, and how we can find compassion, love, and playfulness. So Eric is new to the call. Welcome, welcome. Give us a quick hello. And who are you, Eric? Give us a brag.
I'm Eric. I'm Larissa's son. Currently live in Las Vegas, originally from the Bay Area, California. I work in warehousing and wholesale distribution, do inventory management there. And I just thought this would be an interesting opportunity to give my 2 cents. And so I'm here.
I love it. Well, welcome, welcome. One of the
Thank
things that we're doing here is last week we had a little bit of a challenge in the emotion, not in a bad way, but we all kind of stepped in it with our big feelings last week a little bit. And we came up with an idea that if anybody feels like it's, the whole group is kind of getting derailed into something, what our suggestion is that anyone can put the time out and we look at process. So we get out of the right, wrong, and I'm right and you're wrong, and I have something to say and you're wrong. And we get back into the, okay, what do we want? What are we leaning towards? And how do we move us all back towards healing the hate? So we don't want to stop each other. We don't want to stop the process. But we want to do this in a different way, because in some groups you just talk and no one engages. In this group, we're going to actually have ways that we can communicate with each other. And this is just a space I'm creating, and we're all leaders. So it's kind of an experiment. How can we,
Okay,
keep
sounds good.
loving each other? So who else was there last week that wants to say yes? And this is also what I remember from last week. Eric, Ariel, Larissa.
I thought we pretty much chewed it up pretty good last week, so I don't have any addition.
Okay.
I think Ariel was shaking her head to say she wasn't there. Her mic was off though. I'm not there.
But
Okay.
Dr. Beth, I do want to say I did review it. And so I did have some thoughts about, I mean, nothing that I want to share, but I get where you were coming from. I mean, because even though I wasn't there, but I listened to it. So it was kind of like, okay, I was at a decision point. I'm like, okay, we're going to see how this works out, because I'll just leave it at that. So I'm glad you said what you said.
Okay. And this is going to be really important that we get to be raw and real with each other, and also compassionate and loving. So we're walking through the eye of the needle with
but
this.
I do think there are ways to do that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, there are ways to do it, and we are all having the opportunity to go young sometimes, and we all have the opportunity to have our little hairs on the back of our neck go up. So let's just have compassion for when the other person has the hairs on the back of their neck, and see if we can point towards what we want and how to move it forward. So thank you for reviewing the video, and I'm so grateful that you said what you said. So we'll keep going at it.
Right.
So,
well, and for anybody else, just this feedback, because I mean, as a group member, I should participate whether I'm here or not. That's what I think, first of all. And so that was one way of doing it. But also you gave a homework assignment. So, I went on and responded to that, like, write articles, even though February is over, about Black Lives Matter. So you know what? I'm like, I'm gonna get right on it, follow through. I mean, that's what we do as members of a group, participate, whether we're there or not. And then I think there was, a couple other things that, obviously we should go away thinking about how to be, moving forward, as I think the word you used. So um, that was helpful to me as well, because it is about the hard conversations, and it did make me think, so what do I want to say and how do you say that?
Okay, I love it. And thank you for stating what you want and what you need and your authentic, honest space. And none of my hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I felt very,
Oh, not, okay.
I felt it was very loving. Okay, so Larissa, take us away. Show us what you want to
All
show
right.
us. Hi, Uncle John.
So this will be the Emmanuel Acho Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Men. He did I think, 5-minute year in review. So I think there's a couple of, what they call those Easter eggs, that we can pick out to chew on a little bit. Let's just see.
Okay, beautiful.
Welcome to the first of hopefully many episodes of Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Man. So consider this a safe space to answer so many questions that I've seen from y'all. Now, the goal of this was never to be a monologue, but rather a dialogue, and encourage you to have dialogues of your own. So I'm privileged to be joined by Academy Award winner, but more importantly, father of 3, Matthew McConaughey, Chip, and Joanna Gaines. Joined now by Rachel and Ryan, season 13 of The Bachelorette, Lindsey Vonn, Olympic gold medalist, and PK star defenseman for the New Jersey Devils. I'm joined now by Jamie and Aaron Ivey, by Carl Lentz, lead pastor of Hillsong East Coast, commissioner of the NFL, Roger Goodell, by the Petaluma Police Department, by bestselling host and comedian Chelsea. Matthew, let's talk.
Like your last episode of Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Man, I watched that, and it gave me new context. It gave me some new insight. It made me think of the why, not the how.
Matthew McConaughey.
Manuel Acho.
I mean, bottom line, our family wants to hear what you have to say, and the idea about having an uncomfortable conversation with a Black man, honestly, is exactly what we need for this exact time.
I think that it's best that we raise our kids to see color, because there's a beauty in color and there's a beauty in culture. If we don't see color, if we don't expose our children to different colors, to different races, then it'll be the same thing. As a white kid who becomes an adult, you won't be able to decipher the difference between a Black man
Okay.
that's a threat and a Black man that's just Black. Lynn wrote, "Dear Manuel, I grew up in the 1940s. My family were good people who were unconsciously racist. Negro was a term we used. Racism, like religion, was drummed into me. It's hard every day to choose not to judge, but I'm listening. I'm 73 and I'm still learning. Don't give up on people like me. I'm awake now and determined to wake others up. Bless you, my brother." It doesn't make you sad.
It does make me sad, because it actually, not sad, it makes me feel extremely guilty.
Why?
Because I am taking a strong Black man away from him. But I love him, and I mean, I shouldn't be penalized for that, I don't think.
You shouldn't feel guilty for loving who you love. That's their problem. There's nothing that you can do to change that.
Do you all fear for your Black children's life?
Every day.
It's just sad to know that somebody might do that to people that look like me or famous, just because out of hatred over our skin color. It's just sad that someone would want to do that. It's scary about I might lose a brother, or I might lose my life, and then I don't want to leave this family.
The problem with American Christianity is we think Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacekeepers." He said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." But we're here to make peace. That means, what do you have to do? You have to go find war. You have to find trouble. You have to find the hurting in order to bridge this gap.
That's real. If you were to publicly express your remorse, apologize to Catholics, what would you say?
Well, the first thing I'd say is I wish we had listened earlier, Cap, to what you were yelling about and what you were trying to bring attention to.
I have a question. Do police officers make you nervous?
Yes.
Now, what if it was a black police officer?
Nah. If I can now be honest, I see he's black before I see him as a cop.
Right.
I see you all as cops first. If Chelsea Handler were a black woman, would she be where she is today?
Great question. Great question. You know, the old me would have been like, yeah, and now I'm probably not.
Thank y'all for tuning in to the first of hopefully many episodes of Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. Consider this a safe space to educate yourself and help me help you by leading your questions and sharing this video. Because while you might think you're not ignorant, someone you know, and someone you love, they may be.
All right, so not sure how to get out of here, but let me stop sharing.
So bottom, yeah, there you go. Perfect. Hey, Erica, welcome, welcome. Okay, so thank you. That was perfect. Why don't we just go right into it? And if anybody has an immediate reaction, go first. Let's try to keep it a minute or less. And then if everybody needs a minute to think about it, I can go first. So who has a reaction? What were your thoughts about this? So I'll go first. So, okay, go Cecilia. You were going to say something? You're muted. I muted everybody to try to help the sound.
Well, first of all, I think I'm glad that we had the video, and while it seems like it's easy to just have a conversation with people, it really isn't. Ever since not only that we started talking about this, but last year I discovered how hard it is to do this. And so first of all, I admire Emmanuel Acho for doing this, but, because it has to start somewhere. And the people that are there, what's very evident is they come from all walks of life. I'm reminded of something I learned a long time ago: you love who you love. And so when we have all this hate and discontent going on, I just feel for the families that are involved in that, the children that are involved, and I wonder how they're talking to their children. So I had that conversation with my daughter. Her husband looks like he's white. He's not, but he has a biracial parents. And so then there's their son who's 9. And so, I've talked to them about, okay, what's the conversation? Looking at his school environment, who most of his friends are, who happen to be white. But, there are questions, and children are more worldly today. Parents on the one hand are trying to protect them, but, they're going to hear it from somewhere. So that was kind of my first observation at looking at this. It was the children, it was the couples, and it is, let's have that uncomfortable conversation. So perfect start.
I love it.
I'm limited to about 1 minute, so I'm through.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. I'm not going to comment. I'm just going to say yes. Who's next? And you can respond to someone that's talked before, or feel free to respond just to the video. Go ahead, Larissa.
So I had not actually watched any of his videos before, doing my homework. So while I was in there trying to find videos, I watched, I want to say 5-ish. So I think, as Cecilia said, this is a good starting place, but in one of the videos, I can't remember which one, he said he's 29. And so number one, he's 29, and number two, he was a football player, which I didn't actually know that. So, I mean, he's asking some questions, but I feel like in the videos that I watched, a lot of it was, I called it soft shoe. So I don't know how effective these are going to be, because then I made the mistake of reading the comments. You know, you never read the video comments. That's just not a good place to go. But, you know, most were positive. But then, of course, there were some of those people. And so I was like, okay, I have to stop that. But so, you know, when I saw the one on the police, I was like, okay, this is going to get, I don't know, I use the word gritty. But I mean, Petaluma, I don't know if you guys know where Petaluma is. Okay, this is the least gritty police department anywhere. It's like they could have come to Manteca. But so I don't know, I was a little bit disappointed in that particular episode, which we didn't watch. But so I'm glad, but I probably absorbed some of the comments because I think I'm what's that word? I feel like, you know, he's young, so I don't know how much experience he has in, you know, a lot of the things that have happened. And someone, you know, again with the comment, shame on me. I'm sorry, I'm over a minute. But, you know, I don't know how
That's okay, go
representative
ahead.
he is. That's what I was trying to say, how representative he is. So, I mean, you know, he's the one having the conversation. He's as representative as he needs to be. But I'm glad someone's doing it. That's where I was going. I'm sure that's where I was going. Go for it.
Well, and I would love for us to create a space here that we can let that, you know, deep, that level of depth, and then let's drop in even more and enlighten us. Let's have some uncomfortable conversations that we can all compassionately hear each other, and specifically the white privileged hear those that have gone through hell with the racism. So that would be my vote. Who else wants to go next?
I'll just share an observation. So first of all, I couldn't hear too much of the interview. The connection wasn't great, the sound wasn't great. So, but something struck me. The only person I recognized in that video is Roger Goodell. And while it was good for him to be on there, I think it's the fact that the NFL has made a pariah out of Colin Kaepernick, I think speaks volumes. That they only did something about Black Lives Matter and you know, racial inequity on that when there was an uprising from their own league, from their own players. And so what I'm sort of in the mind of is that I wish more CEOs of big companies would take action and voice their, you know, talk about this issue, not just leave it for celebrities or people that most people wouldn't know, because I think the more famous people or the bigger companies that would have conversations around this, I think that would really be beneficial to the whole society getting more involved in these discussions. So that sort of struck me that Goodell is the only person that I recognized on that video. And I wish more CEOs of companies would have these kind of conversations. So just a thought.
So if I could respond to that, one, I watch sports, so I didn't know who Emmanuel was. I do know who Roger Goodell is. I've seen several conversations, and I can tell you, and I've been very emotional with a lot of what I've seen, you know, the conversations that have occurred. So I'm going to throw out LeBron James. So kind of to go back to your point, Risa, because I kind of thought, on the one hand, I get well, he's young, what can he really say? But right now, the people who are speaking up are young people, for one. That's, you know, young people are not afraid to speak up. I mean, they're all out there, you know, shoot me, whatever kind of thing. And so it's kind of like when you go back into history, when John Lewis got started, John Lewis was a young man getting his head beat. So not to take issue with that, but sometimes a lot of us can feel that way, and I have felt that way on occasion. But I remember hearing this guy saying on this video we just watched, I'm 73 years old, and he asked a question. And so it is so true, depending on your perspective, how you might answer the question. But, and this video was kind of pretty soft compared to some that I've seen. I just give him credit because he at least is given a platform, one where people will talk. Now, going back to what Eric just said, the CEOs, the big people. So, and I use LeBron James because LeBron James has moved a lot of people with the voting, getting people active. And so sometimes, and what I've heard is we have different, that's kind of the challenge we have. Who are we going to talk to? It all depends on what you look at. If you're not into sports, you're not into sports. Are you into the arts? Are you into, things that are all church related? So that is a challenge, but I do believe that there are people, speaking out. Now, to me, the very hardest one is the police issue. So, every day, I don't live in a big town, but I live in Dayton, Ohio. But my gosh, my husband's from Oklahoma City. And so there was an article in the paper today, and I'm just kind of freaking out about it. Here we go again every single day. So this is police killing a young man. So anyway, so I guess where to use again, how do we have that conversation? It's because we're not going to just start a conversation with somebody, probably.
Maybe.
But, well, yeah, I guess it just depends. So anyway, I'm leaving an open-ended sentence out there to say I agree with what I heard both from Larissa and Eric, because it just makes you think. But over to somebody else.
All right. Thank you. How about Dad or Uncle John? Either one of you guys want to jump in there? Go, Dad.
Well, I had an unusual. I couldn't hear the film, so really don't have a reaction except like somebody's effort to try to get some talking going, and that's good. I like that. I had an unusual thing to happen last night. A good friend of mine who lives in Washington, D.C., I live in Nashville, called me. He's about 45, something like that, and I'm 83. And so he is in school, and they're studying race relations. And he knew he wanted to talk to an older person about race relations. So he called me. He said, do you remember what was going on before integration became a law or it took effect or whatever? And I said, very definitely. I said, I can remember all kinds of things. I can remember the black and white water fountains, or black and white restrooms. I can remember blacks sitting in the back of the bus, and I could just make a list. It's a long, long list. And he asked me, how did I feel? And I said, honestly, I didn't feel anything. It was normalized. It was just what you did. It's just kind of like window goes up and down, the door opens this way, and black folks sat in the back and white folks sat in the front. I don't think I felt better, but I knew that was my position. And I recall one time going to a theater to see a movie, and all the black people were upstairs in the balcony and came in a separate door, and all the white folks were down here. And I remember there was a lot of laughter up there, and I heard that, and I thought, isn't that interesting? And I thought to myself, I wonder what that would be like to be up there. But in my hometown, it was very separated. I'd be interested in John's response here in a minute, because we were the same family in the same town. It really did not become an issue for me until the Little Rock Central High integration. And that was a new day. And since then, I've thought to myself, how in the world could I have gone through that? How could I go to a church and sing songs like they're yellow, black and white, we love, they're precious in our sight, whatever the song is. And And how can I be how can I be a Christian and think this and or be so insensitive? And I really didn't study. There was no study that I recall much about slavery, and that was very deliberate on the part of the white man. And so there wasn't a lot of effort to put that out there. And so anyway, I talked to this fellow. I'd love to just take an hour and tell you more about the conversation, because we took nearly 2 hours. And he was telling me about his circumstances. And I said to him, what I'm more concerned about today, frankly, is the continued oppression and the issue of, have we not gotten somewhere? Have we not been able to get somewhere? And I was mentioning to him, and I told Beth about this later. I said, he and I talked about it. I said, well, I would love to just have more opportunity to talk with Black and white people about what is expected. I'd love to hear from some of the Black folks in this group and other people. What would you like to see white people do? And what are some of the desires of your heart? Without putting words in anybody's mouth, that would be a concern. I think I've said enough, so I'll let you send me letters and call me on the side.
Well, I have
Thanks,
a comment
Dad.
on that one, actually.
Go for it, Eric.
I think there's an easy short answer would just be, like it's always been, equality. We don't need to be treated any differently. You don't need to be looked at differently. I don't need to go, into a store on a different side of town and be, followed around that store, anything like that. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. Just equality for a start.
So Eric,
That's all I got.
my
Yeah.
thought about that is it enough? Is it enough
no, I
just to
said
draw
that's
a
a
line
start.
in the sand? Yeah. Okay, I think that would be a good start. And I hope we don't stop there.
Yeah.
And I'm loving the conversations that are happening in the media, and I'm loving the diversity of everything I'm seeing everywhere. I watch MSNBC, and I loved last month, and I hope it continues. That's how I'm going to know if we're making some headway, is if this continues. So thanks for that, Eric, and feel free to say anything else you want to say about the film. Any other reactions or anything else that you're hoping to get out of this group?
Well, as far as the video, my mom had sent a link earlier, so I did watch that same video earlier, and I told her I got emotional, and my biggest thing from that was how heartbreaking it was to hear from the little girl. I mean, she's so young, and she's mystified as to why anybody would want to treat her this way or feel this way about her because of the color of her skin, and she's worried about losing her life and her brother's life, and she's so young. She's got other things that she should be worried about than living or dying because of the color of her skin. And that's what I took away from that.
Heartbreaking. Yeah, that's priceless. Thanks. Okay, who's next?
I'll go, Dr. Beth.
Go for it, Holly.
Yeah, I'd like to acknowledge something subtle in the video. Just the framing that they were acknowledging race itself. And reason I thought of that was because growing up, I came from a very diverse place. Even though the majority of people were white, we had quite a few Black people, Latino, Pacific Islander, Asian, a good mix. And I think it's important that they acknowledged race, because the kids that I grew up with, we never acknowledged the differences, and finding out later that the kids who were different, who were mixed or Black or Asian, said that they always felt they were white, like they were made to be white, that they were posing as white, and that when they got older, they realized that they weren't, and it was shocking to them. and because they discovered racism outside of our community. So I just think that whole concept of, acknowledging Black Lives Matter and saying it that way instead of all lives matter, it does make a difference, so it's wanted to say that.
Yeah, I stepped in that pile, saying all lives matter, and someone helped me see the light on that one. And because I'm like you, Holly, I've grown up more without noticing the difference. Like I think I'm the only white person in my whole community, in my whole neighborhood. And I did that intentionally, and I did valuing diversity at Vanderbilt on purpose. And so I live this way, and not acknowledging and trying to go all the way to all lives matter steps over the fact that it's kind of like what I was saying with Eric. I don't know if it's enough for us just to go with equality. I think we need to back up and love and hold healing. Go for it, Erica.
Yeah, all lives matter. So there was this question that I was in this BNI diversity meeting a couple weeks ago, like a consortium to come together to like, how can this BNI region move forward with diversity? And there was like, what do you want to get out of this? Why are you here? And my response was something like, well, Black men are being killed or hunted, and I'm not okay with that. And other things like that. And so like when you say all lives matter, well, heck yes. And all the thing that you see in all the different cities, the trans lives matter and all those, those things are so helpful to kind of get it into our languaging. Oh yeah, these different populations of people haven't felt safe or haven't felt included or haven't felt, you fill in the blank, like those things really, it's so important for me to be waking up to what is it for every little person, so that I feel that waking up to who have we not included, and it's a process. Like I was listening to somebody, I was watching The Politician, which is this cute show that if you haven't seen it, and this person was standing up and becoming a new political, like they're in high school at one point, and she said the alphabet thing that Dave Chappelle was like the alphabet bus, and then so she was saying all the things, and then she got in this letter and that letter. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Oh yeah, right, okay. And I actually could think of what those letters were, that GLBTQI. And, like, I could, in my brain, I'm like, what is that? Oh yeah. Just being that inclusive to, how do we be mindful of those different groups of people who have felt, so anyway, does that make sense?
Yes.
Oh, and welcome, Robin.
Yeah, I got it.
From
Hey, Robin, go for it. Welcome.
Hi. Erica just invited me. I popped in not even knowing what I was popping into, but glad that I have. And with that phrase, all lives matter, it feels like it should be all lives matter until Black lives matter, until people of color's lives matter, then all lives don't matter. And I think white people feel like they're being well-intentioned by saying that they don't recognize race, when in fact, I think that's a disservice to people, because there are those differences, and those are differences that we should be interested in exploring and understanding and knowing more about, and they're part of each other's identity. And when you say you don't see somebody's race, then you're really not seeing who they are fully.
Yeah. And when we don't see anybody's race, it's also saying that white privilege is the race. Just like when people say, the assumption is straight is the norm, white is the norm. So until we acknowledge those that are not in the mainstream and in the norm of the privilege, then we haven't created an equality. Go ahead, Eric. Eric Atwood.
Yeah, so just to follow along with the all white, all lives matter narrative or argument, I found it very counterproductive and dismissive of the actual issue, you know? And the fact that there was a Black Lives Matter movement going on for most of last summer, we were doing that, the people who were involved with that, because racism and social injustice and, you know, police brutality against minorities is an issue. And everybody who was not actually acknowledging that by saying all lives matter was dismissing them as if it wasn't a problem. And that's why it is a problem, because people aren't really acknowledging that these are issues. They're only thinking about it from their own point of view. And I'm talking about politicians and, institutions. I mean, racism is an institutional problem. It is a systemic problem. And unless people at the highest levels are acknowledging it as a problem, there's going to be a whole segment of society that doesn't think it's a problem. You know, and that includes media, by the way, the right-wing media. I'm not going to try to get into the whole discussion about that, but the right-wing media doesn't see it as a problem. And that is a problem. You know, we're talking, the Dr. Seuss thing has been in the mainstream for the last 2 weeks. The right-wing media was focusing on cancel culture instead of racism, which was the issue at hand. And so if nobody's really acknowledging what the real issue is, that this company decided there's racist imagery and racist messages, we're gonna stop this. All of a sudden the right-wing media said, this is cancel culture, and it just blew into something completely irrelevant to the issue. So I think that's part of the problem, is there's so many people who don't see this as an issue. If more people did and more leaders at the highest level acknowledged it as an issue, I think there could be some resolution with these things. But too many people are just narrow-minded, you know? They don't see things as a problem.
I agree.
What about you, Ariel? Do you want to say anything? Uncle John, Ariel, either one? Go for it, Ariel.
A little, just my reaction. I didn't jump in earlier about my reaction to the video in general, and Eric touched on it a little bit. For me, my whole take, I knew who none of those people were. I have no freaking clue who any of those people were. I'm not into sports, not connected. Yeah, I am. So I was just watching and absorbing the message. But to me, the whole thing came to a standstill when that young girl was talking, and I could feel the fear in her voice. The tone in her voice was real terror, and the degree of terror reminded me of sitting in my grandparents' reminded me when I was a child, about 8, and looking at on the television, and there was some racist, they were showing some terrible cake, like things with people with, and I remember the terror that I felt when I saw that, and them yelling and doing some sort of just horrible activities, and it put me in that space. But to me, the emotional impact on the generations is devastating. What I heard in that little girl's voice like terrified me and made me want to do something. I don't know the answer. I'm only speaking my impressions here. I didn't know who any of those people in the video were, so I wasn't impressed by their status or their being in media or whatever. I was just trying to absorb the information. But the terror that I felt when I heard that little girl's voice definitely made me want to do something and hear how we can solve the problem.
Yeah. That reminds me of my little niece, Zaida, who her dad is from Mexico, and her school friends called her Ashy, her skin ashy. And she has the most beautiful, just beautiful skin. And she just cried and cried and cried. I said, what does ashy even mean, Zaida? She's like, my skin. I'm like, sweetheart, you have the most gorgeous skin. And I think one of the things with the little ones, having what you were talking about, Holly, and the having a small group of people where you do get to feel like you're normal. I don't like that everybody thought that they were white, because that becomes the thing that the kids think they are, instead of we're all of it. Like, my skin's white, yours is brown, yours is black, yours is how to acknowledge all of our differences and making each one of us special at the same time. Uncle John, did you have a say on any impact on the film, or anything you want to add from what everybody's been talking about?
Unfortunately, I couldn't get the sound to work, so I was not able to hear it.
Is it possible for those of you who could hear the sound or did watch it to give us a little recap so that we can be better with you? Because some of us came in a little late. That would be so helpful.
Let me just
Eric?
mention one.
Go ahead, Uncle John.
A few months ago, there's a gentleman across the street from where I live, and I was asking him about why he didn't walk around the lake more. He got a little private lake in the subdivision, and he said, a black man walking by himself around the lake gives a lot of people trouble. I have another friend that lives up the street who is from Mexico, and he says he wears his retired military cap just about all the time. He said, not because I'm trying to show off, but people treat me differently. They say, oh, he's not Hispanic, or he's not from Mexico. He's someone from the army, and they treat him differently because he's more legit. It's not an idea of normal being white. I would love for the normal to be a variety. I think one day we ought to talk about reparations, when my family has been able to gain a whole lot of financial wealth because of where we could buy a house, and it increases in value. And someone who has been redlined could not buy a house where I bought a house. So how do you bring people to a place of financial security when we have spent, since Jim Crow and slavery and whatever, keeping people from being financially secure? Just a thought.
Yeah, that I get that. Go ahead, Larissa. Were you gonna? I thought you put your hand up.
No, actually, no. The only thing, when he mentioned the reparations, Chicago is actually starting that. So I just saw that in the news today. So that will be a larger conversation. So.
Yeah, and even the black farmers in the new bill. I think this whole new administration are looking for lots of ways to equal the playing field, and with voting and with so many things. Go ahead, Cecilia.
So
Hi, Katrina. Welcome.
I'll start with the one word you just said, trying to equal the playing field, which goes back to the word that Eric used, equality, because, and what Eric said was, we got to start somewhere. And equality seems to be the easier place to start, because it's sort of like a number. You sort of know what equal looks like in terms of, if I have this plus this, it equals that. We are very materialistic, very capitalistic. So it's a start. Now, going a little deeper, however, the challenge becomes So the other 2 points related to that, equality without some heart. So Ariel and Eric mentioned their feelings about the little girl in the film. You know, I mean, we got some people who have no heart out there, no empathy whatsoever. And those people who don't have heart, no feelings for the confusion and the pain and what people don't understand. I mean, you know, they're clueless by desire. I mean, the biggest thing I've learned this past year is I used to think you could speak logically to people and you could explain things, but I realized there are some people you cannot do that with. So, I mean, that's another piece of it. But going back to then further back
Can
to
I
what
say,
your
Cecilia,
yes.
Cecilia,
Yeah.
can I say something about that really quick and then let you keep going? You know, one of the reasons that people can't hear something in their face, being called on the carpet, being called out, is because they feel too guilty and too shameful, and they don't know how to acknowledge the truth without feeling shame. So one of the things that I teach is, if I knew better, I would do better. And if we all started with, we're all doing the best we can with what we've got, given how we were raised, given what we were taught and all that, if we can have some compassion while people are trying to wake up and learn, that may, like, the biggest bully on the playground is the one that has no compassion for themselves. They have nothing to give, which is why they're so hurtful and harsh to everybody else. And they step on the one person they can step on. That's why the adults step on the kids. That's why the tops step on the bottoms. And so having empathy for the people that need to step on people will help them open their heart. What was the other thing you were going to say, or feel free to say
So
on to me.
I liked, okay, what John and Bill said. So it kind of makes the point Larissa was saying, having lived longer in times where people didn't know what they know today, is worth opening up that aperture and having the conversation. It is true that, you know, you live, you know, I mean, hey, it was normal for Black people to sit up and, I mean, some people were not involved in being those people who made sure they sat up there, or that they made the black and white colored signs and all that kind of stuff, or, you know, sick the dogs out and all that kind of stuff. It was part of how you were brought up, what you, how you live. But I think to go from there and make the huge leap to today, to say, well, that's how it was, but this is what I know today and how I feel about it. That's where we're going to make some progress. I had, you know,
Right.
I mean, a couple conversations that I've had with people, having had that conversation, they really said, no, I had no idea. You know, I had no idea. I get it now, although I might be, you know, and then sometimes some of us are going to feel a little sensitive. So, well, no, you don't really get it, but at least we're starting to have a conversation about it. At least I can explain how I feel about it. And the reparations part, I mean, because I guess it was on 60 Minutes recently about what they're doing in Illinois, which is amazing. But we have, you know, so many people who are against that. But having the conversation about why, it's the why that we do need to talk about. And I think in such a way that it's explaining why people feel the way they do. Why is this little girl so upset? And so I have mentioned the book Caste. I don't think the explanation was out there, but you can, if somebody just wants to know what it's about, can go on Amazon and look at what the book was about. But the real tragedy to me, so I had to say all that to say this, is that we have been schooled to be and think a certain way, both Blacks and whites. So when Holly talked about her neighborhood, yeah, there's a lot of times the reckoning wasn't there. Hey, I thought I was white. And then one day there's that rude awakening. Oh my gosh, for a Black person. But also having been told, you know, we got to talk a certain way, we got to look a certain way. If you dress a certain way, you're going to be how you're going to feel. So I made a joke the other day. I was doing the food bank and the wind was blowing. And, you know, I'm mature enough that I don't want my hair looking all crazy. And so I had a hoodie sweatshirt, and I pulled my hood on, but I was conscious about that. I said, oh my gosh. So these people are going to be thinking, here's this Trayvon Martin woman giving out food to people at this particular location. The majority of the people happen to be white at this particular location. But I mean, we are so schooled to how we're looked at. And so I am an adult having gone through and am very confident who I am, but at the same time, I have those thoughts. And so, you know, that's just a minor thing. There was another thing happened today. I came home and asked, I shared it with my husband. I said, why am I thinking that? And because he said, you know, kind of what I said, you all, because we're always we're always thinking about how people look at us. So you take a child, you take somebody who, you know, who's grown up with, you have to be white, not to be looked at, to be, everything's okay. And so as we are starting to share our stories and people are bringing on, you know, different views, I mean, it's an emotional event. And so, but you don't know about the emotional event until you start talking about it, until you start sharing. So anyway, time's up.
Can I comment on that video?
Absolutely, go for it.
On your comment, actually. I want to completely agree with the image thing, because to be 100% honest, right now in the wintertime, I always have my hood on in the house, at work, outside of work. And I did not put my hood on for this video because I did not want to put off I didn't want to give off a certain vibe or be, you know, perceived as a stereotype. So that is 100% accurate. And yeah, I think about it all the time also.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, I just want to say, I would.
And I'm going to jump in.
No, you can't.
Okay.
Oh,
we were talking at the same time. Mother gets to go first.
Go ahead, Larissa.
Go ahead. Is that Beth trying to talk? Go ahead.
Yeah. Well,
so all I was going to say is, I think it might be worth.
Go, Larissa.
You're so funny. Is it my turn? I'm just saying.
Yes. It's your
what
turn.
I wanted to say was, right around 9/11, or the most recent, not the most recent, but during periods of when the Muslims were in the news. If you look at Eric, he is relatively, I'm going to use the word fair skin. That's probably not accurate. You guys know what that means. But Eric is sometimes light enough to be mistaken as Muslim. And I know he has had some experiences as being miscast, if you will. So I don't know, Eric, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I was thinking about what you said about the hoodie. I was hoping you would speak more about how you as a Black man walking around and, you know, the things that have happened to you. But I know we had this conversation because it was something about either your facial hair, and you had said something to me that someone had mistaken you also for being Muslim. And so it's the whole thing is like, or the Indian comedians that get on to talk about, and, you know, they talk about their experience and they say, you know, they're come to America, if you will, and people start talking to them in Spanish. And so all these misconceptions that are getting in the way of real conversations. But Eric, if you have some thoughts on that, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I just thought that was interesting because I know you get it at least three different versions of why you're a threat out there. A perceived threat, excuse me.
Definitely. I only touched on the hoodie thing because Cece had just mentioned it, and that was relevant. I've had several experiences. Nothing I could really, you know, go into detail or think about. I have to think about something to give you an example, but that's all. I just touched on the hoodie because you talked about the hoodie, and I would normally be wearing it right now as my head is a little cold.
That's good.
Well, I'm just for the record, I'm totally cool if you want to put your hoodie on, just put your hoodie on. And
Right.
Katrina,
Okay.
I saw you and your son was there. Are you guys able to jump in here and say hi? Dr. Hurd, Katrina.
Hey, sorry, I had to get unmuted. So, yeah, sorry I'm late. Anthony and I are traveling to Florida, and I just got to looking at the time and thought, oh crap! But Anthony has been joining us for this session since we've been on, and he's definitely opinionated about what we're talking about. I'm not sure what his opinion is, but he definitely has one. If anyone wants to hear a Black man's opinion.
Absolutely, Anthony. You got 2 thumbs up all around the house. So welcome to Heal the Hate. That's what we're about here, trying to heal the hate and wake up. So wake us up.
Well, I was just I was just listening to the other gentleman. I don't know his name, but I can understand where he's coming. Eric, okay, yeah, Eric. Like I was telling Katrina, I could understand where he was coming from. Because I've been in a situation where I wear a hoodie a lot, and like depending on what I'm walking into, I might choose not to put it on simply because of the perception I think it's going to convey.
Yep, and that sucks.
That's all I had to really say.
I'd like to make another contribution.
All right.
Go for it, Dad.
Well, I was thinking about this clothing thing, and I was also kind of going back to my own question: is what could white folks do? And I started thinking, what am I doing? And one of the most valuable things that I think I've experienced in the last 10 years, no, 5 years, is to have I have caregivers that take care of my wife and me as well too. But I have one woman a Black woman who has been here for 5 years, and her name is Deja. And we are very, very close, extremely close. We're very open with each other. We just talk about kids and husbands, wives, the whole 9 yards. And that has led us into a lot of discussions about her lifestyle. And I have learned so many things by talking with her that has just made me understand. I mean, for example, her husband works at Amazon and gets off work at 3 o'clock in the morning. And they have a deal that he will never leave Amazon without his phone, and he will leave his phone on all the way home so she won't be worried. And it's not enough for him to get home and say, hey, I'm home, I'm safe. She's worried about him the whole way home. And she talks about that with great fear, great concern for his well-being. And I thought to myself, my goodness, I've come airplanes and wherever else around the country, and I've never wondered, am I going to be safe driving across Nashville to get to my house? That's just never been a thought of mine. I mean, it may have been a little bit of a thought, but nothing like that. And it's so programmed. And then the other thing she does is with her 2 girls. They're both elementary age kids. And she has told them in no uncertain terms, neither one of you will ever go anywhere without the other one. You will always take the other one by hand if you go into the restroom and you go into that area. Do not go anywhere without your sister. That's a big deal to her. And the other day she was telling me about one of the girls going in somewhere without her sister. And you would have thought this kid did have premarital sex or something. I mean, she just blew up. And there's a lot of fear that she talks to me about. And she's a very self-confident woman. Oh my goodness, she's so self-confident, very smart. Oh gosh, she's just brilliant in so many ways. So it's not like she's paranoid or neurotic, but boy, she can speak of areas of fear And I sat back and listened to some of that, and I thought, wow, I've never known that. I've never experienced it. I don't know what that is. I do not know what that is. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. That's an understanding on a white man's position, for what it's worth.
Who else? Who else has something to say?
Gracious, I didn't mean to shut the group down.
Well, so I
heard a dog bark.
Somebody else. Yeah, can't talk. No, I mean, that was great. And I'm glad you shared that. And it goes back to the other Eric Atwood, who said that, that reminded me about, his comment, which I'll share, that we do need to hear. That's why I said for people, maybe that whoever opens up the conversation and to share it. So that's what you did. CEOs, Eric had mentioned that. And so I had participated in a diversity, equality, inclusion, something. It was a virtual thing a few weeks ago. And they did have a few CEOs on, and this story has been published. It's the American Airlines CEO. And so he was on and he shared his story about one of his airline flight attendants. And so what was he? And he was also reading the book. Oh, I'm drawing a blank. It might have been White Privilege. I think it was White Privilege or whichever. He was reading the book at that time, but he wasn't really looking at it at the time. But anyway, without going into what the story was, the bottom line was when she sat down and asked him he was reading that book and what did he think about it? And before long, she starts crying, and he's like, he can't believe she's crying, because he looks at her as, a strong person. She's got herself together, never known, he always sees her doing her job or whatever. And so he went into that he did not realize, one, what duress she's under, what her concerns were about, and what she lives with every day, kind of what you're saying, Bill. And so when I was listening to that story, again, what opens up is that, there's a lot of us that feel that way, in the sense of, because when I was thinking about Eric, so other sons become, say, my sons, because I'm thinking about, oh my gosh, that could be my son that somebody is stalking and is going to kill. That's the story. Or how am I viewed, or, I'm distressed because, I got to be concerned about my grown child going somewhere. Maybe, hey, you're grown, but I want to let you know you shouldn't be walking around these protests, or don't be down, where somebody can, say something to you. So, that's normal, everyday life that others don't have to deal with. And now we're starting to share that, and people like Bill just now, or like this American Airlines CEO, start saying, wow, I never thought about that. I had no idea. So, the stories are real. It's real people, real things. And since we didn't get here overnight, it's just, again, that. So one of the big takeaways I think we've already shared and learned is listening to others and sharing with others, and what do you deal with, and, talk to me about it.
One of my questions for anybody that's willing to answer it, is what has been painful being Black? What has been painful that might wake me up or the rest of us up, just if it's something that you'd want to share? What's a pain that you don't think that we know?
Could I just respond? I'm not
Yes.
Black, of course, but to what Bill and Celia were just sharing. that I can't relate specifically to what a lot of Black people deal with on a daily basis. But that doesn't mean I can't listen to them and appreciate what they're going through. And I think that's the key to this whole thing, is for people who may not be able to relate. White people can't relate to a lot of what Black people go through, but they can at least try to understand what they're going through. Show some compassion, show some kind of empathy. And instead of just like, that's not something I have to deal with. That's not something that I can relate to or really understand. It's like, wow, okay. So instead of that way of thinking, it's like, wow, that must be so hard to have to deal with that every day. I mean, just imagine if more Black people had that sort of open-mindedness when they feel like they could share it with people and people could actually appreciate that, oh my God, this is what I'm dealing with. And white people who don't deal with this are actually appreciating me for what's going on in my life. So I think that's part of the resolution to all this, is we need a lot more open-mindedness from people who are not going through the same problems, but they can really appreciate something that other people are going through. So compassion, understanding, that's where the change happens.
Love it. Love it. And we may or may not have enough time today to let everybody talk, but I would love that's something that I would love to hear. I'd love to hear about the realness of what you've been through that I may not get or understand or have gotten. Does anybody want to share?
I got a recent situation.
Okay.
Last year, I'm in the car business, and last year I went to me and a friend of mine who was a white guy. I found this dealership down in Atlanta that had the kind of tow trucks that we were looking to buy, and my credit score was higher than his, and he had a mechanic shop. I own a car lot, and which I don't think makes a difference, but we bought the same truck, and the problem I had with it was, like I said, my credit score was higher than his, but I had to put $40,000 down on mine, and they only asked him to put $20,000 down, and I couldn't understand that, and the interest rate that they were trying to finance the balance was even higher. And I couldn't understand it. I think it was directly associated with I think race played a big part of it, you know, because
wow.
As far as like yeah, and that was something, and the thing about it is, like, I wound up getting a better interest rate, but that was only after bringing the light of the situation that my friend James Ray had applied in the same truck, everything, and the same price, and you know, and his interest rate was better than mine, and my credit history was way better than his. I couldn't understand that, and I feel like a lot of times when dealing with financial institutions, they have it's like a barrier set up. You know, just because I hate to play the black card, but that's the only way I could put some type of understanding to it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Anthony. Sucks. I get it. Anybody else have anything?
So I would just add that as a broker, you know, we're trained on the inequalities in real estate. For example, I think Bill mentioned the redlining, or I'm sorry, somebody mentioned redlining, which, you know, I'm aware of. And of course, we have to be trained every year. But what I did not know until recently was that, say, for example, if a Black family is selling their home, their homes are typically appraised like $100,000 lower if the appraiser comes in and recognizes that they're Black, if they have pictures or whatever. And so my point being, aside from the outrage, is that it's important that people, you know, push back and ask questions and and just don't go into a financial deal by yourself, because people will take advantage of you. Even though there are laws on the books that say you're not supposed to discriminate, we know it happens. It happens to minorities all the time, and it's extremely frustrating because a lot of times people don't know that they're being taken advantage of. So it's just, I don't know.
That's maddening.
It's an
That's
ugly
maddening.
situation, and it's important that people, get educated so they can ask questions or get someone to ask the questions for you, because that's dishonesty is one of my hot buttons, and then when people are not treated fairly, I'm really, that is just, that's very irritating. So yeah, it's all over, it's throughout the system, as they say, it is systemic, and people get away with it because people don't ask questions, but we have to teach everyone to push back and to fight back. Excuse me.
Dad, would you be willing to share that story when you guys sold your house in Texas and what happened?
Yeah, just sitting here thinking, we lived in Waco, Texas, and had a nice house in a rural, somewhat rural community. It was intended to be an area built up special house, and I didn't know it till I got there that it was a white flight area, for crying out loud. And forget the name of the area, but anyway, there was no clue, and I didn't know it. And then we
China
bought the
Springs.
house.
China Springs.
Yeah, that was it. And so anyway, we were ready to sell the house, and a family had built a house, really big house, way larger than ours, to the right of our house, and spent a ton of money and landscaping, and just, it was a show place. It was really a show place. And we put our house on the market, and a Black couple made an offer that was very good, and we were prepared to sell it to him. And this couple heard about it and approached us and said, "I'll give you whatever you need. If you need 10,000, if you need 50,000, if you need 15,000, I'll give you whatever you need to buy your house." And we want to keep in the neighborhood. We want to keep things the way they are. We just couldn't believe it. We just thought, boy, this is out in the open. There's no secrets about this. This is just real stuff. And obviously we didn't take the deal, but it was really an interesting experience that caused us to be more sensitive to the point that was being made a while ago about the real estate. It's very real in that area, to say the least.
Well, it's 5:50 and we have 10 minutes till we wrap it up. So why don't we just go around the room and everybody say what's your takeaway from today and any ideas you have for next week. Do we want to watch a video again next week? I mean, 2 weeks from now, the 2nd and the 4th Tuesday. So Erica, what's your takeaway, and do you have any ideas for what you'd like to bring in for next call?
Okay, well, I just appreciate everybody sharing and the stories and the real stuff, and I just think of it as, it's so good to hear everybody, like each person who shared. I just really appreciate you putting your voice into the room, and this is important. All of this is important. The conversation is important, and some of it is uncomfortable. Maybe some of it has to have some feelings about it. Like, really, I get angry, I get sad, I get all these things. And I think it's just like a healing to just hear people. Like, that in and of itself is, we don't have to work so hard, because this is the healing that needs to happen, is just hear people. So yeah, thank you again. It's just so awesome to hear people.
Thanks, Erica. Cecilia?
Say stuff that needs to be said.
Cecilia?
Did I get cut off? Oh, no.
Cecilia, you ready?
Oh, okay. I didn't hear my name until you asked the question. So I agree with Erica. And this is hard. I mean, you know, anybody says this is easy is definitely not telling the truth. No, just start talking, but this is hard. And again, we have centuries of hard. So that's part of it. Secondly, I think we're making progress, good progress, because people are sharing. I mean, at the end of the day, it is really about sharing. And when we share, hopefully we're listening, and that invigorates further thought. So for me, this is good. We're sharing, and if we could just, you know, continue with that. And believe it or not, something could happen to each of us tomorrow as a result of this conversation. We'll think about it. We might respond to it differently because we've had this conversation. I truly believe that, you know, thinking and sharing makes some of our actions later be different, or at least we might give pause for reflection. So
Might make
thanks
us
for
be more
everybody.
caring. Thinking and sharing might make us be more caring. Dad? Dad,
Well,
you wanna...
I'm glad I'm Beth's daddy, and I'm getting to know more and more of her sharp friends. And it's just a delight to be around such competent, sharp individuals. And some of you folks I've seen in other Zoom groups like Erica and others that are on the screen. And in terms of the content, I think it's such a wound that it is painful. Painful, you know, I've watched during the month of February, there were so many Black movies. And I watched some movies that I probably wouldn't have seen had they not been on that Netflix or whatever it was on. And I find it, I'd come out hurting, and I think, gosh, I feel like I want to call somebody and say, can I help you or do something, you know? So I think there are a lot of white people who are coming to grips with the reality of what is happening today, and not living in the past, and not just saying, oh, wasn't it awful then, but it's awful now. And what can we do, and what should we do, and what might we do? And so it really helps me to, you know, and somebody was on the road there. Who's that? Anthony, was that right? And one with the dog, one with the dog, and then, yeah. And then you got a mother and daughter team here, and I listen to all of that. It's just a lot of very helpful communication. So just keep it up, as far as I'm concerned. Good way to grow.
Thanks. Larissa?
Well, I actually had the meeting on mute because I had to take that call. So what is the question?
Just what's your takeaway from the call, and anything you want to make sure we do next time, or any thoughts for next time? Takeaway for today.
So that's what I thought, but I thought I'd just confirm. So I thought today was a good session, and I think we should do more of it. Maybe the video helped kick it off. I don't know. So maybe we try that one more time with the volume up. Maybe someone else wants to do it. But anyway, I thought that kind of helped people get over any discomfort about sharing. So I thought it was a good conversation starter, and I thought we had some real dialogue today. So it was a good call. So I think we can go onward and upward.
Thanks. Awesome. Go forward. Atwood.
Was that me? I think some. Oh, okay. Yeah. So this has been a great conversation, a rich conversation, and what I'm taking away is that everybody's opinion matters, and when we really speak from our heart, I felt like everybody was really sharing something from their heart. And, you know, there's great passion and meaning in these conversations. So I related to something from everybody here tonight. And I just know how insignificant this issue is and these conversations are. So I'm just grateful to be part of a community like this that is having uncomfortable but important conversations, because the only way to change anything is to have conversations about it. And so that's what we're doing here today. So I'm grateful for it. Thank you.
Thanks. We've got 3 minutes left. So does anybody need to leave right at 6? I'm going to stay till everybody takes a turn. But if anybody needs to leave right at 6, then jump in now. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going around. Okay, go, Uncle John.
Just having a conversation like this will make all of us a little more attuned to what's going on in the next 2 weeks. And I think that would be helpful.
Maybe
Beautiful.
you can be
Beautiful.
maybe be a little nicer to your brother, maybe even.
Wait a minute. I think my brother said something about he loves me.
I think it's Jesus loves me. Eric.
I took away from this that there are actually people out there who are interested in changing things and are actually doing something about it. I will admit I was a little nervous about doing this. I didn't know really what to expect or how I'd feel about it. I will agree with my mother that I think the video was an easy way to kick things off. Kind of, you know, get the old hamster wheel turning. And I can't promise I'll be back every time, but I do believe that I will do it again. Thanks for
I'm
having
so
me.
excited. I'm so excited, Eric. Come whenever you can. I love having
I will.
mother-child teams. They excite me. Okay. And father-child teams. Ariel, your turn. You're muted.
Dr. Beth, I just want to say thank you so much for your passion and for making this container for everybody to have this conversation. And I know that it's because I'm deepening my listening and compassionate listening, and using some of the language that that you're using in your inner family world that has really shown up as some great breakthroughs and in my world, having me be able to powerfully make requests and say what's going on in my reality and on my side to other people. So I'm just noticing how listening like this and being open to all sides are improving my reality. And I'm hoping that that in everybody's reality, they can have that kind of improvement and that we can improve the world a little bit at a time. So thank you so much for facilitating this forum.
Thanks, Ariel. Katrina and Anthony, you guys want to jump in? Katrina, Anthony.
I'm just thankful to have been able to be part of tonight and introduce Anthony. And I guess what I have to say that's on my heart is that racism is real. And honestly, before I met Anthony, it in my heart, I just believed that everybody believed like I did. And it was, you know, a man is judged based on his character, not his skin color. But I am learning very quickly with traveling around with him that it's very difficult to build rapport with people with him being present. And so it's, I don't know, I'm growing and learning a lot, and I'm very thankful. And I'm greatly thankful for this group.
Thank you, Katrina. And so grateful that you brought Anthony. Anthony, are you cool to say anything? What's your takeaway?
He actually is on a business call. Sorry, guys.
No worries. Just tell him thank you so much for coming, and we'll have him anytime. Holly, are you still there?
Thank you.
I'm here. Hey,
What's your takeaway?
My takeaway is I'm so appreciative of everybody's story and be able to hear it. I really like the video and the idea of watching more for next time to started off. I'm grateful for you, Dr. Beth, is starting this group so we can all start talking. I think that's the first step, and I'm glad to be part of it.
Awesome. Well, Larissa, I would love, I would love to get a link, and let me see if I can do it. Sometimes I can make things work with my system. So text me the link that you think would be a really great next link. And if you want to, when everybody else hangs up, I can practice it and we can see if it works. And my takeaway from today, I am so grateful. I like Erica, my heart hurts. Like, this is so sad and painful. When I heard Uncle John talk to me about the black man that couldn't walk around the neighborhood, when he told me that like a month, you know, I don't even know what, 9 months ago or so, I just cried. It's so unfair, and I just feel super passionate about making this world a peaceful, loving, fair place. So I'm just super grateful that you guys are showing up, and we're all doing what we can, and we're going to figure this out, and we'll touch lives when we can touch lives. So that's my take. And I just want to send love all around. Love to each and every one of you. And Eric, I double dog dare you to wear your hoodie next time. My mom used to tell me I had to wear a dress. Made me so angry. I do most of my presentations in a baseball cap. So this is very rare to have my hair down. Everybody will tell you that you very rarely see me with my hair down. Most of the time you're going to catch me in my cap. But anyway, you guys take great care. Be yourself, do your thing, and lots of love all around.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye, you guys.